G'day whisky lovers, this is Somewhiskybloke and welcome to Malts with Mates, where we talk to brand ambassadors and distillers from all around the world about all things whisky.
Shilton, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. Didn't even realize it's Friday today till afternoon. Did I get a notification? I'm like, oh, it's Friday. So that's pretty much what life we live at the moment.
Yeah. No, it's different. I can understand because Glenn Murray Ian's on as well, and you guys have very similar roles where you're out and about all the time. So obviously it's had to change you quite heavily. Is there anything you're still doing? Are you still running online courses or doing a lot of computer work?
We're still doing the online tastings and stuff like that. But then there are a couple of emails here and there. So we're still working from home. The sad part is that we have got it's locked down in India as well. So the distillery is shut down. So that affects a bit.
Oh, because that was something I was actually going to ask about. With the distillery shut down, is it shut down completely by a government order, or is it making hand sanitizer, or what are we seeing there?
No, it's shut down completely, but we were doing some hand sanitizers as well. The lockdown is extended till May the 3rd May.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a look at it again and see how it works. A lot of shipments which are pending and stock to be moved out from the distillery, which is all stuck up at the moment. But let's hope for the best. And in Goa, it's okay because we have 0 cases till today. So that's
well, that's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess also earlier when we were setting this up, I saw you having a little sip of something. What are you drinking today?
The perfect way I always love to start whiskey and ginger ale. So that's good start for me. I've got my whiskey poured and waiting for me as well. So I'll move on to that later on and start with a
nice one.
Pressure.
Well, I was sad to see I couldn't actually find a full bottle of your whiskey over here, but I did have a little sample of your Cask strength peated version. So I'm happy to pour that one because that one's always been a favorite. So that's quite fun.
You had done a review of the Cask strength, isn't it? At some point, was it?
That was a while ago. That was months. Oh no, that was years ago now. I think that was 2018. But I find the peat's quite good. But can you walk us through it a little bit? Regarding what barley you're using for the peat, and of course for your whiskey, the peat, where you're getting that from, and what you do differently.
So a very common thing which everyone says, why and how is your whiskey different than any other whiskey? Well, the whole process is the same, but there are a couple of things. What makes it different is the barley that we use. We use a 6-row barley grown at foothills of Himalayas up north, and we take it down to Goa. The distillery is on the west coast in Goa, just 10 kilometers from the sea. With that, we get a faster maturation. It's been matured in American oak cask, matured bottle in India, in Goa itself. So what makes it different will be the 6-row barley that we use. The 6-row barley is very high on protein and low on the starch, so it will give you a lot of this oily character, long bodied whiskies. Plus, with the faster maturation, we don't have to. The whiskey tends to be ready in just 3 to 4 years' time. The one you're sipping on is a 6 years old whiskey there.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 years, and that's what you get. So much full flavors into it. The only thing that will come for us from out of India will be the cask, American oak, and to make a peated whiskey. Since we don't get the peat in India, we ship the peat from Scotland.
Okay. Yep.
So we ship it from 2 different regions. We ship the peat from Islay and the Highlands. Bold, the expression which are my personal favorite. So Bold's got full Islay peat in it, and the peated select cask, the one you have, is a mix of both. So it has got Islay peat and the Highland peat in it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So there's not a huge history of distillation, not least of whiskey distillation in India. How does something about that come about? How does someone in India decide, let's start a distillery and a whiskey distillery?
Well, the whiskey making in India goes way back in the 18th century. During the British Raj, there's the first distillery set up up north of India. It's called the Solon, the distillery. And then Mr. Paul, the owner, who was in the business from 1992, making whiskey rum for the Indian market. Then very passionate guy. He had this passion for single malts, and he always wanted to. He loved his whiskeys. All he said is, "Why don't I make it if we get the everything in India?" And that's how it started. Just one man's passion. 2008 was when the distillery was set up.
Yeah.
And he released in 2012 the first whiskies out in the market. So that's why it's named after him as well, Mr. Paul John.
Okay, so it is named directly after the founder. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to hear something like that. Your favorite you had there, the bold. What makes it your favorite? Is that just you've always been a fan of that style of whiskey, that flavor?
I've always been. I'm a big fan of this style of whiskey. I love peated whiskies. I love the Islay malts. So here you get all the fruity flavors coming in, your tropical fruits coming in from the signature of Paul John, what we get in most of the whiskies. Plus you get the Islay character in it. So it's not heavily peated again. It should be something about 30 ppm. So it's easy drinking peated whiskey, but then it's well rounded. So it has got a long finish with all these oils coming in, tropical fruits, chocolatey notes on it. My personal favorite. It's my go-to jam all the time.
And if you were to use that for a pairing, would you go down your cheese, your meat? Are you one for a beer? I know you said you love the whiskey and ginger, but what else would you have with it?
With this one in particular, it pairs very well with the dark chocolate. We've done a lot of cigar pairings. It works well with that as well. My personal favorite with the bold is with seafood. And I'm a big fan. I love oysters, and pairing that whiskey, having it with oysters, is a perfect match.
Oh, that's interesting. See, Multi-Missions just said the connection doesn't seem to be optimal for him. Can you hear us, Multi-Mission? I've no idea if he'll be able to answer that. No, it's an interesting idea there. And you yourself, I mean, as long as I can remember, you've been the regional and the brand ambassador for Paul John. How did you get started within the industry and then move into Paul John from there?
That's quite a long story to make it short. My first experience with the whiskies was when I started working in the Middle East. In 2006, that's when I joined, and I was working for travel retail. A place in the Middle East where, of course, you'll be selling most of the whiskies, but you can't be trying any of them. You're not allowed to. So you got this thing in you. Why is it the best seller? Why is it a good whiskey? And all you know about it, but you never tried it. So you got all this thing in you. And 2012 is when I moved down to Goa, joined Paul John, working in the Goan market. I'm from Goa myself.
All right.
I live in London now because I look after the European markets. But it's mainly joining them and understanding more. 2015, I moved to the UK. I was looking after the UK market first. And today it's Northern European markets mainly.
So there's a lot of expansion, and that takes you all over. It's quite interesting that we did touch on earlier. You spoke about the climate of the maturation, and Fiona Shoop. I don't know if Fiona's watching, but she asked before we began, how old would a Scotch whisky be in relative maturation to a 3 or 5 year old Paul John? So, what are the effects of the climate and the humidity on your whiskey? What do we see there? So,
the whiskey tends to mature about 3 to 4 times faster in India compared to colder climates like Scotland. We will get the flavor profile in a short time just because of the higher temperatures. You're looking at the average temperature of 23 to 25 degrees Celsius in the warehouse. The humidity is always higher. It's about 60-70% higher. I've seen the temperature shooting up in the month of May, even going up to 35 and 40. So that's how hot it is. I know. I mean, I as much as I miss the place, as much as I love being there, sometimes it's like way too much of heat. So the whiskey tends to mature 3 to 4 times faster, extracting more flavors from the wood in a short time. So I wouldn't compare it as old age Scotch whiskey, but I will say you will get similar flavor profile in a short time for us. But the downside of that is also that we lose a lot of whiskey. We lose a lot of whiskey by angel share. So the angel share for us is about 8 to 10% per year, which is a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting there. When you say that, is there a certain peak or is there a limit to how old you can age your whiskey based on maybe it takes in too many undesirable qualities from the wood, or if you would lose too much alcohol? Do you have a peak there?
Yeah, so for so long, whatever whiskeys I've tried as cask samples, and we are pretty much new to say what old whiskey will be for us. We just started off new. We started off in 2009, so they're not that much longer around. But the one thing which we have seen is 5 and 6 years old whiskey will be a good cutoff time for us, where you get more fruity flavors coming in. If it goes, I've seen when it goes 7 and 8 years old, it tends to get more oaky and woody character coming out. But well, that's fine. People love it. But for us, what we want to maintain in the whole range, 5 and 6 years will be a good time for us to do. Plus, if we use an ASV and 200 liters, we are looking at 10% a year. We won't have a 20 years old whiskey anyways. That's what's left in the cask.
There's enough for Shilton to try, and that's it. Actually, I was going to ask next. Do you have any interesting or special release on the way? But Ian from Glenmorris has brought in a nice question of he'd like to know about. Is it too early to know what the 2020 Christmas release will be? The last two have been amazing, so I wonder if he's not trying to see anything. Can you answer? Can you give any hints?
Well, there are hints. If Ian's been following my Facebook or Instagram, he must have seen some pictures I've been posting about the cask. That's all I can say right now.
There you go, Ian. So you've got to dig through.
Coming up more related to the history of what Goa has before. So I think that's a hint. That's pretty much a hint for Ian.
I was going to ask something, but I'm not going to say it now in case I'm right. I'm definitely not, but just in case, I don't want to get you into trouble. All right. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, following an earlier question as well, an earlier thread I meant to ask about, you had the whiskey back in the 1800s under the British occupancy, but what rules do govern the production of whiskey in India? Is that something that there's been set laws, or is it something that you guys have set them, or do you follow with the kind of Scottish regulations? What would you say there?
So it's pretty much the state excise which will decide on all this kind of matters of deciding what it is. But for us, we don't have to. There's no such law to call it as whiskey in India. We could not leave it for 3 years. We could just take it out in a year's time or 2 years' time and release it and call it as whiskey back in India. But to work it across and ship it across the European market, we have to mature it, and that's why we follow the SWA rules, just so that we can export it. Yes, there are. The excise department in India will decide on that, and it's also depend on state by state as well.
Okay.
There's something called as IMFL as well, Indian made foreign liquor. Now that's interesting to learn more about it. So yeah, my first whiskey was in IMFL back in India, so that's when I started off with the whiskeys. But that's pretty much, if you look at the top 10, top 20 selling spirits in the world today, you'll see at least 5 of them as an Indian brand, Indian whiskey they call it. It's selling about. We have a brand which is called as Original Choice by John Distilleries.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen that before. We sell that the whiskey comes in a tetra pack as well. We sell it. We sell about 11 million cases per year. That's how much whiskey we sell.
Because that's always something whenever whiskey production comes up, someone will always say, well, obviously it's the Scottish or the Americans who make the most, and then it's it is India that creates the most, but the vast majority would not be exported. Having said that, how much of your whiskey is drunk within India, and how much Paul John is exported?
At the moment, the Indian market is changing for us. It's growing. It is. We just released an entry level whiskey called as the Nirvana, which is doing wonders back in India. It's a different market. 10 years back, maybe it was different, but today the market is growing a lot. It's for us to say how much do we sell more. Is it exports or back in India? I think at the moment today it will be India. Selling more, but it was just the other way around a year back or so. So that's how it is changing.
Interesting. Okay. I guess a big question as well is, while we're doing this and you're stuck at home doing a lot of computer work, is there any way that we can be tuning into seeing you? Are there any festivals that you've got coming up, virtual festivals or anything, any way we can join and have tastings by Shilton?
Yes, we do tastings. The one virtual whiskey festival, the lockdown whiskey festival that we did recently was one. Took a couple of tastings. I did one in Belgium with a customer in Belgium as well. Some plans coming up. I've got one coming up on Tuesday. It's mainly, it's all over the social media. What I post up on my social media pages, and it's we got some interesting coming up with Macmira, the Swedish one. So that's again doing it together with them as well. So fun. I think that's the best way of being connected with people.
No, definitely. We'll make sure that we're tuning into that and trying to catch on with you there. I know OCD Whiskey Soren has just asked, will we see a peated version of the Nirvana?
Yes, there are plans of coming up with it. The whole idea of coming up with Nirvana was to get into to come in as an entry-level whiskey. It was more about a pouring dram, a easy drinking dram. As I said, it's big in India, so that was the whole concept of coming up with that. So we thought, let's come up with the unpeated whiskey first at 40%, but there are plans of coming up with a peated expression as well in the future.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, yeah. I guess that's really it. Yeah. So, is there anything more you'd like to add? Anything else you want us to know in this time? Anything you want to tell us about your favorite whiskey, your favorite bold again, or?
Yeah, my favorite whiskey is. A lot of guys will say, "What is your whiskey?" Which is a non-Indian whiskey, maybe which is a favorite Scotch whiskey. Every time someone comes and says that, so it's I would say I've got a favorite whiskey from every distillery itself. It all depends on what mood I am in. I will walk into a bar, I'll see one of those, and there's always a favorite. So like, okay, I'll have a dram of that. Mainly with the peated expressions, the peated drams. That's my favorite. But open to try some port finishes I've recently come across. We just launched two new expressions which have come out in the market. It came out in January, February, but we couldn't get it out for festivals and tastings yet because of what's going on. But it's available in the market. The two ones, most of the range, what we had, the 6 expressions were all matured in American oak, but we just released out with our 2 new sherry ones. So that's a PX, and we have come out with a Oloroso as well. 7 years old whiskey, 5 years in American oak, and 2 years in Oloroso, and the PX, the other one. Beautiful whiskeys. I've never been a big fan of sherry whiskeys myself personally, but then the Oloroso over here is fantastic. These 2 are new, so that's something to watch out for in the market. Still available to buy it online, but not much. We didn't get the opportunity of launching it out as in tastings and getting it for festivals because of what's going on. But in the future, we'll be out with it.
Okay. I guess something as well you touched on there. You said you have a favorite dram from every distillery. Is there a whiskey that you're disappointed is no longer with us? Is there any whiskey that has been discontinued or the distilleries being demolished or closed that you really regret losing?
Mm, not as such. I mean, that's a good thing because there's so many whiskeys around that when there's one going off, we said, okay, I mean, I've been doing some bottle kills over here at home. I always had something kept with me and said, I'm going to save that last time for a special moment. And then you're in lockdown, so I've been doing a few bottle kills recently. Uh, the one thing with me is I always picked up. I mean, I'll have a few at the bar. I always bought a whiskey thinking I'm going to keep it, I'm going to save it, and then I end up drinking it. So then now is the time when you're locked down and it's standing in front of me all the time. So you just go for it. So I always have as I said, mainly with the peated malt. So I'm more of a peated whiskey person.
No, a big fan of that. And I mean, this is just something based on climate, but you mentioned earlier that Paul John brings its peat over from Scotland. Is there nowhere in India that peat can be sourced, or is it just something that's maybe you don't have the quality of peat or the quantity of peat that you would find in Scotland?
We never come across such things. So I mean, as per my understanding, I don't think there is peat. Even if there is, no one's gone looking for it. So no one used it before, kind of a thing. So maybe there is. If you go up in the Himalayas, you might find some. So you never know. But then it's not something which someone will go out looking for. So I don't think the answer for that would be I don't think so. So the other option for us to do was to get a peated malt from Scotland and ship it to India. But Mr. Paul, the chairman, from the beginning, he always wanted to keep the barley local, and he said, "I want to keep it Indian. So let's keep the barley local. We can ship the peat in because peat is a flavoring agent end of the day. But the main ingredient, that is the barley, has to be Indian. So and plus 6 barley did deliver to us what we wanted to offer, the big full-bodied fruitiness, oiliness in the whiskey. So it works well for us.
Okay. Well, multi-missions.
What's in the future? If you don't get the peat in the future, we have to look for alternatives. So yeah, that's how it is.
Well, it brings us on neatly to a question from Multi-Mission. Is there any other resource you could use to smoke the barley that is Indian, similar to how Macmira have used native juniper to smoke? Is there any native Indian resource you could use, or?
I'm sure there is a lot of options that you could use. But as I said earlier, we are pretty much new. So when you are new in the market, to try out different stuff straight away will be not that really good for it. So we prefer to use it, to make the whiskeys in a very traditional way and stick with it. But in the future, yes, we will try. So there are a lot of things that we are trying out now that we are established in the market with the cask, with different. I mean, for all this while, as I said, we only used American oak. So we tried the Oloroso, the PX. So we are just keep going, keep changing it. Plus the new Christmas edition, which is going to come, will be another new experiment. So there are a lot of things that we have tried out, and yes, I'm sure we will look for something to try out something back in India itself.
Aye, it's just about sourcing it, finding it, and then making it a reality. Okay, well, I guess at the moment, if there's any other questions that anyone in the chat would like to ask, by all means, feel free to ask them now. But for that time being, if there's anything else you want to know, if there's any way that we can support the whiskey industry, we as the whiskey community can support the industry right now, what would you suggest? What would you think is a great thing we could do?
I think you guys are doing it right anyways, keeping the spirit high, just enjoying a dram, tagging along, going for these live tastings and just enjoying a dram. That's pretty much a support that you can offer for the whiskey industry. Rather than just saying, "Oh, no, I'm not going to drink whiskey because I'm in lockdown," then that's not good for anyone. But I think everyone's till date, what I've seen, but doing a few tastings, going online and looking at everyone's posts, I've seen more posts coming up now on whiskey than anytime. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys putting up pictures, posting something about the whiskey. So I think it's even getting much better nowadays. People talking about whiskey, and which helps a lot for the industry. So yeah, that's everything is good so far. So yeah.
All right, good to hear. And I guess the last thing is this could come in neatly as well. Final question. I think Soren's just asking, what about port casks? Now, the smile that you've got there makes me think that we're seeing a port cask sometime soon.
So it's Soren pretty much knows a lot of things going on over here, so that's why he's asking. So yes, we will be looking for port cask in the future. How when I say future, I don't know how soon, but yes, that is part of the plan. Well, we have to. Goa has got a Portuguese history behind it, so it makes more sense for us to get reconnected with the port cask. It makes a lot of fun. I love it. And
Nice.
plus port cask, I've tried a few, which I love. So yes,
Sorry,
it's
a
one
few Paul John port casks?
no.
No? Oh, okay. I got very excited there. Maybe too excited.
No, but yeah, we are working with it, and see some podcasts coming out as well.
Okay. Claire would like to say sorry she's late and also wants to say hello. And the whiskey novice Simon is bringing this in as well. Are there any Indian spirits that can be used that would be against SWA regulations? So what historical spirits would you have in India that you could use for cask finishing, I guess?
Well, I mean, the different state itself will have different spirits. Going back to in India itself, in Goa itself, we got this thing called as feni, which is distilled from a cashew apple. So it's a big thing back in Goa. It's very traditional, done in a very traditional way. So that is one of the spirits which we could work with and do some finishes with the cask. In fact, I think we are already working with it. So just to try it and see how it works out. I mean, not us, as in the other guys who make the spirit. But again, it will be more of an Indian market. Again, we can't get it across over here because of the laws, of the regulations. But in the future, if there is something, then yes. I think, for example, the Feni, I think they have just registered across. They just registered it in Europe. So you could probably see a bottle of Feni somewhere on the shelf in sometime soon. So that's how it is.
Oh, fantastic! No, because that would be something that we'd be really interested to see. And as Simon has said as well, let us know how it goes, because we've no doubt that you get some fun little samples every now and then delivered to your door, full of all different experimental whiskies.
Yep.
All right, but I think that's all the time we have here today. But Shilton, thank you so much for coming on and being the very first guest on Malts with Mates. It was fantastic to have you on, and it went all right as well. So that's something. That's pretty good.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marcus. I mean, that's one thing which I say we keep connected, and it's a good thing because otherwise you don't have much to do. The good thing for me is that I love cooking, so I enjoy cooking at home. And then other than that, there's nothing much to do. So yes, after watching movies, so this is a good way of connecting. I keep logging into Facebook and Instagram and keep watching my other colleagues doing the tasting sessions and just trying. It's so funny because we never had a time to listen to each other, and now is a time when we're listening to each other so much. Wow.
Well, I guess the only other time that we were all together was at a whiskey festival, and you couldn't really just go. You could go for a wander, but you couldn't just stand at someone else's stand and listen to them do the tasting because you've got 30 people over at yours saying, "Where the hell is Shilton? Oh, exactly. He's over at Dave's."
I always wanted to get into someone else's tasting and sit down and listen about the distillery, but then I never got a chance. But now is the time when I just sit down and listen to the guys talking and understanding more about the distillery. So yeah, this helps a lot. So thanks to you for connecting again.
No, it's fantastic. I can imagine you heading into one of the other guys' tastings and just because I think everyone in the whiskey industry knows you, and I can just imagine them looking up and seeing you and thinking, "All right, this is throwing me a little bit. What's Shilton doing here?"
the most of the people in the industry also do know about my thing for the beers and stuff like that. So it's not in a very good way only. It's only about the beers. So yeah, more of the beers.
All right. Well, Shilton, thank you so much for coming on. We'll catch up next time when this finishes, and we hope to see you again soon. We'll keep in touch with you over your Instagram and your Facebook, and to everyone who's watching, keep in touch with Shilton on his Instagram, his Twitter. Make sure you tune in for his tastings and learn all about the Paul John whiskey. Shilton, thank you once again.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.